In this video, I'm taking my mom to the beach and I'm doing a painting demonstration, including 5 great ways to level up your paintings. It was a beautiful morning in early spring here in Denmark, and we went to the beach to get some fresh air and some inspiration. The thing is, the tide was out when we got there, so the sky seemed huge and empty. So I was looking for something to add contrast to this landscape. As there were no clouds and no trees, what was I to do? Then I came across these beautiful large rocks on the beach, and I thought they might work very nicely as a focal point for the paintings and for today's painting demonstration. I'm going to be using a big brush here and a thinner brush. So these will make different contrasting marks. Acrylic paints. And here is our big brush. And I'm going to use the trip to the beach as inspiration. So I can have some big marks. These might be rocks in the foreground. Let's make a bit of texture using a kitchen towel. I'll do several of these because we're just playing here and learning to spot differences and emphasize differences. So if we have some large rocks here in front, we might want to have some smaller rocks further away. So the contrast of something larger and something smaller. And I'm painting rather quickly here just to stay loose, which is another way to kind of stay loose, is paint quickly. And remember, you can always paint things over. So let's do a few more. Okay, might be. And this is just regular watercolor paper. Okay, let's do some overlapping shapes here. And I'll use the smaller brush just to add some smaller marks here. Let's do a few marks here on the rocks. So another way to think of differences in your work is the difference between darks and lights. And this is something we can play with as well. I like to include something very dark in my paintings, something very light, and usually also some middle tones. We can also use something like a pencil to do lines. This is also a contrast, very different mark to the rocks, for example. Makes a very different mark, quite interesting, I think. And yeah, let's, oops. So here we have a very sharp transition between the rocks and the background. So if you are familiar with watercolor, you'll probably know how to make soft transitions, and we'll do that. I'm just going to use water on here and do some soft transitions in the sky. So I'm just really wetting the, and let's introduce a bit of color here. Look how this kind of happens naturally. And otherwise we can help it out a little bit with some kitchen towel to create a softer transition. Here we have softer, more kind of gradual transitions, and also here this is more of an organic edge and stuff. So transitions is another handy thing we have in our toolbox. Sharp transition, both between the stroke, dark and light, and soft, gradual transitions. I noticed some kind of bluish shadows out on the beach, so I think I'll just kind of try and add some bluish shadows on the rocks. I'm being quite loose here, as you can tell. No details whatsoever, because we're playing here. We are trying things out. Let's make this shadow, let's make this blue as well. And see, the sun came from this direction. I think I'd like to just take and make a bit of a horizon line out here. And you know, I don't have to make everything look like it did. Now I'm really just trying to again play with differences and things that kind of crop up and happen. Another contrast or difference that we can use in our work is the difference between the temperature of our paint. So I've been using a lot of cool colors here, cool grays, cool blues. So at some point I think I would like to add a bit of warm color, just to add in some differences. It will just give more interest. It will just make everything pop more. And let me paint a little bit more on this, and then we'll introduce some warm color and you will see what I mean. You are probably not going to be using all of these 5 tips in one painting necessarily. Try and use as a starting point your main focus of inspiration. For me it was the rocks and the sunlight on the rocks. So I wanted to make sure that this was the focal point of my painting. So before you start a painting, think about the main message you want to convey and what techniques can you use to best get that point across. If you want to paint looser, freer and more personal paintings, you might be interested in my new course, Expressive Flowers in Acrylics and Mixed Media, opening up for enrollment soon. Go to www.danishpainter.com under courses to see more and get notified when the course opens. You can also see the very end of this video for a sneak peek into one of the modules in the new course. Again, playing with the warm colors and the cool colors, I think I kind of came up with some nice ideas. Some of these, a few of these are a bit more interesting than others. For example, this composition down here, I don't think it's that strong. This one, I could definitely improve on these. These two I kind of like, probably because large rocks in the foreground, smaller ones, some contrasts. The sky up here, actually, I really like this. I could keep on working a bit more on these, but I think I will leave them as is because these are working sketches. Maybe just add a few highlights with some white here. Could. I did see some of the rocks having some very strong highlights on them out there, so maybe if I added a bit of these marked strong highlights on some of the rocks in the foreground. Let's just quickly peel off the tape and see what we got. I hope you found the 5 tips useful to take your painting to the next level. Stay tuned for a sneak peek into the new course, Expressive Flowers in Acrylics and Mixed Media.